Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of 2021. We will get started in just another minute or two. We have a few people who are trying to join, so we'll give them a chance to jump on here, and we'll get started. All right, well, just a few more seconds, we'll get started. Kim, can you see my screen?
I do.
Excellent. We started off on the right foot for 2021. All right, everybody. Well, I want to thank everybody who joined us. Thank you. And as I always say, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody who joined from all over the world. We have people joining from all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast of the US and over in India. So I thank all of you for joining. This is our first webinar of 2021, and I am excited to be with you again as we have begun to surpass over 100 webinars we have done in the past couple of years. So we're excited that you were able to join us. Today, we are going to focus on what we're calling developing a cost-effective, secure, and scalable banking strategy with SAP Multi-Banking Connectivity. And I have with me here my colleague and the head of our treasury practice, Kim Dowling. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, John.
Let's see if the internet is going to cooperate today. Look at that, it did work. So just to remind everybody, we are recording this webinar. So please feel free if there's something you didn't catch or you want to hear again, go on and head over to our website, download that. I'll show you some of that in a few moments. You can certainly ask questions throughout the webinar. Right here, there is a questions bar that you can go ahead and look at that. You might have a new look and feel a little bit to that questions bar. Our friends from GoToWebinar just did a recent update over the past 24, 36 hours or so. And then, of course, as I said, you can download the previous webinars. Love to have you talk and reach out to us and contact us. Clearly, you can do that through Bramasol.com, but we also have a Facebook page, LinkedIn, and YouTube page. So go check out our videos on YouTube, or you can subscribe to some of our podcasts, our Insight to Action podcasts and blogs over here through Apple iTunes, or some of our podcasts you can catch on, excuse me, on iHeartRadio. So we're very excited about that.
John, your slides aren't progressing.
My slides are not progressing.
Yeah, I'm still seeing your cover page.
Still seeing cover page. All right, well, let's see. Let's see if this helps. All right, how about now, Kim?
No.
No. All right, let's try this again.
Let me just make it smaller. Maybe it's me.
No, I will try again. We had some issues with this yesterday, so we'll try over. Thanks everybody for your patience. I appreciate that. And it gave an opportunity for a few more people to join. So can you see my screen now? All right, everybody. Let's try that again, everybody. I apologize for the technical challenges. Here we go. Maybe. All right. Let's try that again. So again, welcome everybody. We'll start from the top. I do want to welcome you all. For those of you who just joined us, there's about 7 or 8 more people who joined since I started. This is our first webinar of 2021. We're excited to have you here. And we're going to talk about developing a cost-effective, secure, and scalable banking strategy using SAP one of the tools, SAP Multi-Banking Connectivity. Again, to remind everybody, those of you who just joined, we're going to record this webinar. You can ask your questions throughout the webinar in the questions panel, and we will try to address those during the meeting, or we'll get to them at the end. And for sure, we will follow up with you if we don't get to them. You can download our previous webinars, and as I said, you can check those out here from Bramasol.com. You can look at Facebook, join us on our Facebook page for conversations. We also have some great talk tracks going there. Check out our LinkedIn pages. We have a number of LinkedIn groups focused on S4HANA, Treasury, Revenue Accounting, and you can go check out our videos here on YouTube or join our podcasts and subscribe to our podcasts either on Apple iTunes or iHeartRadio. So hopefully, Kim, we are advancing the pages now. So
Yeah, you're all good.
excellent. So again, welcome to everybody. We talked about the housekeeping. Just to walk you through, we're going to do a discussion of some of the driving forces, and I'll walk through that, and Kim and I will talk about that. We'll take a moment to pause and say, what do we mean by bank rationalization? And give you some insights on why you want to do that, the benefits, talk a bit about the solutions that are available, talk about our the how do you do it, and then of course we'd love to show you and talk to you about this new program that we've introduced, the Bramasol Health Check, that I think you'll all really get a lot out of. I know the customers who've engaged with us have seen a lot of benefit. So, over the past year, we've seen a number of macroeconomic trends, and of course, we know that the COVID-19 and a number of other events that have happened in 2020 really force us to think about a number of key driving trends. And as I did some research for this webinar, I read numerous white papers and position papers from companies like McKinsey, Bain, Deloitte, and others. And there are four basic things, and I'll share those with you. The first one is this concept of digital supply chain. And of course, SAP is heavily focused on this space around the digital supply chain. And what it's really about is building in what we'll call supply chain resilience and being able to maneuver very quickly. If we think of the COVID-19 challenges that we faced, how do I move and source, and how do I change the sources of my materials, and how do I enable a flexible, resilient, and digitally based supply chain is one area that everybody really sees as up and coming. Work from home. I think probably the majority of us on this call, and many of us continue to work from home. And we see, as well as many others do, that this trend will continue. While we will begin to move back into the office, I think that the work from home or working from a remote environment is the way of the future. And it certainly shows and belies itself or shows itself in a number of different areas as we look at things like sustainability, work-life balance, et cetera. The pundits all, I think, agree that work from home is a big trend that we're starting to see. What we've also seen is a trend toward and a need for cybersecurity. Even before 2020, we constantly heard about cyber attacks, whether it was the elections that we hear about, or companies that are being breached, or identities being stolen. And those can be not just personal identities, but corporate identities, someone hacking your email and being able to go in and execute activities because they've hacked your email or hacked into your systems. And we continue to see the escalation of this and the importance of cybersecurity. And finally, of course, cost management is always a big issue. We continue to see companies like you and other companies focused in on costs, and not just the physical costs, and those are important, saving money, whether it's saving money on banking fees, or it's saving money on your supply chain, or saving money in your foreign exchange rates, et cetera, but also cost management as in opportunity costs, and your ability to really take the information and data that you have and use that to advance your business forward, and focusing on that. So what does this mean? Those are interesting economic trends or macroeconomic trends. But why is that relevant, you might ask, from a banking and rationalization perspective? Well, clearly, if you have a supply chain resilience and you focus on supply chain resilience, you need a resilient financial infrastructure to support that. What do I mean by a resilient financial infrastructure? Clearly, you need to be able to move your cash around and have access to that cash quickly so that you can make the investments you need to make to advance your business forward. But in addition to that, if you think of supply chain itself, if you're sourcing steel from Japan or the Far East, and suddenly there's a typhoon or something happens, you need to be able to move very quickly to source steel from either South America or from Germany or the US or somewhere else. In order to do that, you need to be able to have a flexible and resilient financial infrastructure that can help you move your money around, access your cash, access your capabilities in those places without having to create dozens, if not hundreds, of different banking relationships. The work from home environment, it's ease of interface with the solution, but it's also this idea of giving a one path and reducing the exposures that you have to your network, to your areas, and using a tool like SAP Multi-Bank Connectivity allows you to have a single interface, a single secure interface, but it also allows you um, to train your employees. It allows you to make things easier with regard to the work from home environment. They don't have to deal with 8 different screens and multiple logins and all of that. It's just ease of working from home, increasing throughput and output. Clearly, it's pretty easy to think about the cybersecurity and the risk management. And you have tools like GRC, um, segregation of duties, fraud protection. You really want to think about this. And why is that important to banking rationalization? Well, if you think about having 20, 30, 40 different bank relationships, somebody has to log in, somebody has to manage those relationships, manage those issues. The more of them you have, the more you open yourself up to possible fraud, to just security issues. And so you want to be able to manage that process for sure. And you want to manage costs and cost optimization. Clearly, and Kim and Kim will talk a bit about this in a few minutes. But the more banking relationships you have, the more fees, the more compensating balances, the lower returns on investment often you're getting from those banks. And you want to create strategic relationships so that you can optimize those relationships. Kim, you and I talked about this pretty in length. Any thoughts from you on this?
No, I think except for, it's what I really am finding is that these items are all what we're being faced with today. And in particular, what I think is really critical is that we need to have that ability to be able to interface with our solutions easily. But it's really critical that the cybersecurity part of it is that we have the proper controls in place so we do not have the issues with fraud and have the right separation of duties and internal controls in place as we're now working from home and connecting via the different modes of connectivity, which may be from our private homes and so forth. And you're going to see that that's going to be becoming much more critical as we move into the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in one of my previous webinars and in several of my podcasts, I've talked about a concept we call digital debt. But I think there's also a banking ecosystem and bank connectivity debt. And the idea is that if your infrastructure looks like this, that you have old, outdated infrastructure and old relationships, and that your business processes or your banking relationships map out something like this, and we call it, and Kim and I affectionately call this our banking lake, but imagine that your banking data looks like this. You have everything everywhere. It's not crystal clear. It's not clean. You can end up in what we'll call a paralytic business model. And what do we mean by a paralytic business model? Well, it means that you're unable, because of the processes you've created or the banking setup that you have today, you're unable to pivot quickly and easily and enable your business. Instead of your banking relationships and your banking strategy, enabling your business strategy becomes owned by and constrained by your banking relationships and your banking strategy. And we're here to talk a little bit about how you might free that up. So Kim,
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about, let's talk about, first off, maybe you could talk about what is bank rationalization. What do we mean by that? And maybe you can do that in the context of what we have here, where, where are you today and where do you want to be? And you can talk a little bit about that idea of banking and bank strategy rationalization.
Sure, John. Yeah, I'm going to bring you on a little bit of a journey today, so we can go through it in the different steps that you're following to go from where you are and what you have today to what you want and how you go about that to resolve the situation where you are looking to have you're not looking for that banking lake that you just showed on the other slide, but developing a scalable and flexible and secure banking strategy, which also includes not just your bank rationalization, but your connectivity processes so you can bring it all together. So you'll find that, most companies will tend to start off their journey of developing a scalable and flexible secure banking strategy. But what they may have is, a good number of banks all over the globe that are not centrally managed, kind of like your little picture on the top there, which is kind of that crazy spaghetti type diagram with
Yeah.
many bank accounts and banking connections. So they really don't have a clear picture of their bank fees or their charges or their fees are high. And you'll also find, which I hear from many of my clients today and customers, they have trapped cash or they have idle cash because it's all spread all over the bank account, and that increases their issues with the idle or trapped cash, and it also in turn will decrease their liquidity. They're concerned with the lack of control over their cash operations. There's too many people touching cash all over the place. It's not centralized. You have too many banking systems, too many portals, too many interfaces with your ERPs to maintain. And I can tell you a story. I remember working for one of my clients, and this is also, of course, back in a little bit of day, and a lot of clients are in this situation today as well. They had a whole pouch of all those fobs for all the many different banks that they had to log in every day. So what happens? Well, you get all these fobs. You got to use that for the security to get into the bank account. Then you also have to have someone that maintains the security and who's allowed to log into it and what they're allowed to see. And keeping in mind, every bank has a different way of doing it. It's a lot of work to try to keep on top of that, to keep the security in place. And also, every time you try to get in, it's like it's different for this bank, it's different for this bank, and you're going all over the place to try to get your information. It's not really sustainable. So what you want is you want a clear banking strategy. You have to start with a clear banking strategy to help reduce the complexity in your banking landscape. So you can kind of get more like this picture here and the blue on the bottom here, where as an example, what I have shown here that's pictured is that you really want to have a few banks that have a global access and that are centrally managed, not that they're managed remotely all over the place, but for example, you have your bank number one, where you have one bank that's in a couple of different countries or regions. You have a bank two that may be in a couple of different countries or regions. Mm-hmm. The same thing with bank three, which is in another region. So you may find that you're dealing with, generally it's probably like two or three, sometimes four, depending on how large and big and expansive you are, but just a few banks that you're dealing with. So now what it will allow you to do is it allows you to now have that global access that they're centrally managed, so you can create that secure, flexible, and scalable banking ecosystem. You can easily add on new bank accounts as you need to go. Sorry about that. You have access to all relevant data in a central platform. You have that secure integration with your ERP. But this is all now still going to enable you the ability to streamline your processes. You can significantly reduce that manual processes that you would have had with all those different fobs and maintaining all that security access and trying to pull that cache together to find out what your visibility is. And so you've got that real-time access to your information. You have control over your bank charges and fees, which is going to be critical. And so This is what you have, and here's what you want. So this is where the journey I want to bring you into it, how you're going to get there.
Sure. So now let's talk. So, we talk about this banking rationalization. We talked about this digital debt or this banking debt. How did companies get here? What causes them to end up in this place? And then maybe you can talk about what's driving the change. What's causing the world to change now?
Sure. This is typical. This looking for the scalable, flexible banking strategy. It is going to drive your bank rationalization. And what I want to point out, the item that I put at the top here, your bank account reconciliation should be one of the first steps. Definitely one of the first steps toward automating the manual treasury processes in general. So when you're looking at this, as companies grow, how did you get here? As companies grow and your commerce becomes more global over time, your organizations might find themselves with high number of bank accounts, a variety of banking partners, right? And this happens. And you have all around the world these different bank accounts and banking partners. And this can happen out of several different ways, which are typical that you would find to be, make sense. It's out of convenience. You have accounts that may be set up for certain specific transactions that you're dealing with. Might be certain client relationship or local convenience. Local convenience, as an example, where I had actually when I was back sitting in Treasury, where say I needed to open a bank account because they were in a country where the infrastructure had a lot of pollution and a lot of it was very congested, and for the safety of the person, for them to get to the bank, he wanted it right next door in the corner so that he didn't get killed riding his bank through all the traffic or die from all the smoke. Things like that. Or you could have it out of mergers and acquisitions, which would make sense. And so you're having a lack of control of all your cash management strategy, and you don't have that formalized bank account rationalization process. So over time, many legal entities structures are going to be created due to the needs over time. So it ends up becoming more obsolete to your organization, or for financial reasons or strategic reasons, or due to better technology capabilities that you have today. So now you start to look at firms are looking at how can I rationalize my bank accounts and my connectivity structures. It's really key to your administration complexity to increase your cash efficiencies, improve your liquidity, and start to follow that treasury team so they're allowing them now to focus on the more important responsibilities such as their debt issuances, their management, of their cash management, their risk management, investment optimization, so they become more strategic partner to the organization. But I also wanted to reiterate that, as I've mentioned prior, even though it's a work-intensive process, as you can imagine, to go through this, bank account rationalization should be one of the first steps towards automating your manual treasury processes in general. So now let's talk about this. What drives change? How do people go from here's where they are today, which is not quite efficient, and it happens over time, it's normal, and then what actually starts getting them to realize they need to make some changes, besides the fact that technology changes? Well, some of these drivers could be such as the corporates are moving to new ERP platforms. They're upgrading their ERP platforms. They're consolidating their payment platforms, streamlining the way they process their payments, such as through Multi-Bank Connectivity, which we'll get into in a little bit. Or they're moving to a shared services arrangement. So rationalization is really corporate's first step in prioritization and this customization. So that's where what starts to drive these changes.
Absolutely, and it's no different, I think, than a lot of the issues and challenges that we've seen here, whether it's digital debt or other areas. Certainly, out of convenience, you opened an office in Malaysia. You needed a Malaysian bank. You set one up. You got a relationship, as you said, or you have certain client relationships. But it's so important to think about and take a step back and certainly rationalize that. I also think, and it's so important, you talked about this, we talk about this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but that visibility to cash. And one of the things that having bank accounts everywhere, it makes it really hard to understand where your cash is. And maybe you can take a moment and talk about that. Talk about, what are we seeing companies that we work with get the benefits, if you will, of a rationalization strategy?
Sure, and we'll talk about some more benefits after this as well. But just to start, if you're looking at analyzing your banking strategy and you're looking at rationalization, there's a couple key items which you make sense. Your cash is spread over fewer bank accounts, so now you don't have that idle cash, trapped cash sitting all over the place or stuck where you don't have a clear visibility. So now you have available liquidity. You can go in and get into the marketplace real quick and start making your investments right there. You know exactly where your cash is. You have more focus on your banking relationships, so you're not trying to chase down, okay, who did I develop, which bank do I have where? and trying to make sure you're not over your limits and you don't have all your eggs in one basket or too much spread in the bank that's not strong. And then it gives you the ability to have more favorable terms and negotiating power when you have more smaller landscape of banking relationships. So now you can focus
Mhm.
on those bank relationships and have that better negotiation power. You have that, and real important is that full cash visibility through a single point of view. You're not going into that little purse that they used to have, like about 20 different fobs for all the different bank accounts and trying to log into all the different places and pull in manually what their cash balance is. As you can go and have one visible place to see your cash. You don't have to go through so many different access points, and you can concentrate it more with the visibility with just a few. And more important, we're going to get into how you can actually see it in one place altogether. You spend less time on cash management. You're not, spending all day long trying to reconcile your bank accounts. Did they come in? Where are they? What's my balances? May put an Excel spreadsheet, and you've got that efficiency in there. The efficiency will drive you to be able to manage your cash management and to do other more important things. And of course, if you don't have a lot of banks and a lot of bank accounts and you're more streamlined, you're not going to be repaying all those crazy banking fees. And again, that negotiating power that we just talked about up above is going to actually help you as well. So now you have less cost reduction. And of course, if you're not staying with the idle cash, you have less cost reduction too,
Yeah.
because you properly invest and utilize your cash when you need it properly. And of course, you can imagine when you have a lot of bank accounts, trying to keep up with all that paperwork and make sure you have all the right signatories, make sure you have the right mandates in place, and then when audit comes looking in, you've got all your, everything's all aligned. You don't have so many different places that you have to go to. And so, of course, then that, you reduced all that complexity there and all that paperwork, which
Yep.
takes a lot of time.
No, absolutely. And I think it comes down to three words that you and I talked about: visibility, efficiency, and control. And I think
Yeah,
it's all about, in this case, the fewer bank accounts you have, or if you're using a tool that we'll talk about, um, you have visibility. It's so important to know where your cash is, what your cash availability is, and how you can access it. So that available liquidity to make sure that you're getting the maximum return on investment.
exactly.
And
It's
then
critical.
efficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Efficiency is all about, you know, let's not spend time gathering all of the data and rationalizing the data. Let's let the tools and the process efficiently manage that so that we can make the intelligent decisions on how to and where to invest excess cash, or if I need excess cash, I know quickly and early so that I can most efficiently borrow that money at the lowest percentage rates, or maybe do it. If I have visibility, I can move it around using features that we'll talk about in some future around things like in-house cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that effectiveness of doing that. And finally, of course, so important is the control. How many times do we hear about, issues and challenges over around the control of their cash, the control of the relationships, and ensuring that only the right people have access to that, and that they're following the appropriate segregation of duties. And so, bank rationalization moving down to, and again, bank rationalization, moving down to a strategic structure in which you have the right banking accounts for the right reasons with the right banks in the right places to enable your business strategy, not hinder or restrain your business strategy. So,
Exactly. And you're
right,
fine tuning it into more of a centralized approach in place so you're not all over the place. And when you're all over the place and too many access points, you can't control, you have no control.
right. So, what does SAP, we've been working with SAP for several years, many years now, and SAP has this great product. We've been working with it with several of our clients, multi-bank connectivity. How
Mm-hmm.
does that help? How will that help our customers and help these folks with enabling a rationalization of their banking strategies and their banking infrastructure?
Yeah, this is a good one. So if you look at this pictorial here, what you're seeing it here is you're seeing in the center here SAP Digital Core. That is their treasury digital core of all their treasury management, which includes all of your solutions for all of your payments. That's AP payments. flows coming in or out, AP, AR, Treasury, your payroll, T&E, any kind of payment. It also is the communication, your bank communications for those payments. It has all your cash management, your investment management, your financial risk management. So the bank connectivity will allow you to actually connect with one pipe, streamlined into your digital core of all your treasury processes and payment processes. So you're covering all your solutions from payments and bank communications, your cash liquidity management, debt investments, your FX and hedging risk management, and of course, together, all that visibility, you can also increase and work better with your working capital. So you have more control of your working capital management. So I'm going to go into a little more details in a few minutes of what multi-bank, SAP's multi-bank connectivity, which is really a pipe and interface between your ERP system for all of your flows of your payments in and out, bank statements, and works with facilitating your acknowledgments and everything that's going on with your bank accounts and your payments in any one time. Full visibility, one pipe, one place to manage all of your information. So let's go on to the next, and let's do a little bit more, because you're going to really achieve a cost-effective, secure, and scalable banking strategy after you're going to go through this process. Right. So having said that, when you're looking at this, you're going to be looking at the different challenges that you're going to face. Today, there's different challenges that you're going to face with IT or with your business challenges. So if you look at the Victoria part, you're going to have many corporate clients that you're dealing with. You could have more than one ERP system. Some people only have one, but there's a lot of cases that have gone through mergers and acquisitions. They have more than one ERP for different reasons. You also could be dealing with different banks and banking systems. And could be, whatever banks or whatever systems you may be using, so you're not standardizing, it's all over the place, and you have many different corporate clients that you're dealing with. So now, the challenges for the IT, of course, as you can imagine, is if you have many different bank communication portals that you're dealing with, you could have multiple failure points in complex structures that you have to manage and keep on top of all the time. If one bank changes their infrastructure, you're going to go and change that and update that, or else you can't have the communications with that bank, and it's constant. Anytime they make a change, you have to go in and change that communication in your ERP. It makes it much more complex and much more costly because you have to have a team of people watching it. Treasury and folks that are doing all their payments lose control over that, having the ability to monitor it and have control over it themselves, or relying upon other people to be involved. You also have the business challenges, more so than what I just mentioned, is that you have difficulty in reconciling your bank accounts and the cost with that. I mean, you're going all over the place to try to get your information for all your bank accounts and reconcile and automate your GLs. You don't have the lack of the visibility of the financial messages. Did the payment go out the door? Did the payment succeed through the SWIFT network? What point did it fail in? What happened? What are your acknowledgments? Difficulty in managing the working capital across all those banking relationships. If you don't have clear visibility and control over all your payments, APR, all your investments and your debt, you're going to have difficulty in managing all your capital and banking relationships.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but I think the beauty of SAP and multi-bank connectivity is it can be used in many different ways, and you can use multi-bank connectivity for some of your banks, and if you have host-to-host connections, you can manage those. But SAP gives you a way to bring all of that into one place, right?
Yes, it's one of the ways that yes, I think a lot of us, companies that probably are on the phone today, that you've either done through your bank portal, you've done a flat file upload, which you can do. Or you might have a case where you're doing a host-to-host, which is where I was getting into the IT challenges of having to maintain all those different connections.
Sure. Absolutely.
But if you have one point of entry, you'll see it in the next slides as I'm coming down when I get into the benefits of multi-bank connectivity. I mean, I've seen it all, done it all. I like the multi-bank connectivity because it gives me that much more point-to-point contact and more better control over it, which I'll describe in a few minutes.
All right.
So with this diagram, what you're achieving is a consistent and streamlined end-to-end process that I was just talking about for all the players in the flow of the banking between between the end user, as well as all your ERPs, as well as all your banks. So you're bringing it together in one streamlined process end to end. So what you're getting is not just that seamless user experience, and driving, looking at those, value-added solutions, but you're going to be now looking at that what you want, which is that global visibility and access to your cash, because it's all in one place. You're improving your liquidity, you're managing all your risks, and of course your operational efficiencies and cost effectiveness. Why? Well, you reduce your banking fees, you reduced all the costs of your IT infrastructure, try to maintain all that information. You're not going all over the place to try to get all your cash visibility in one place. You can get to the market really quick, and make your decisions and manage your cash and make proper investments, get rid of all the idle cash, trapped cash. But you also have a better government and control. You don't have all these people touching cash all over the globe, which actually opens yourself up to fraud, because you can't be everywhere and see everything at the same time, especially when they're not all connected centrally. You don't have up to the minute, real-time visibility. And it's also, it's easier to control who has access and change it on the fly.
Right.
As I talked about earlier, all those different fobs, all those different bank portals that you have to go into, and all the different systems that are all different in the ways that can take forever to have to try to maintain it. You can do it right there at the tip of your fingers. And the SAP Multi-Bank Connectivity, just like you would with the SWIFT network, of course, and when you're dealing with banks, it's all encrypted, and it has the controls and the backups all around it, so there aren't any issues with that. But the difference is it's one secure connection. It's not a multiple bunch of different secure connections. It's one.
Right, and you're then relying on SAP to provide. So rather than relying on it yourself, you're trusting a company like SAP to manage the secure connections with the banks. You're simply managing your secure connection to your ERP, which is something you do. And of course, if you're in the cloud, that's even more. You get the advantages of the SAP cloud activities going on around security and all of that.
Exactly, and SAP Multi-Bank Connectivity is in the cloud too, so that it's already secured and so forth. But, and think about it. Well, you come in the morning, and all of a sudden you don't have your bank change some of their protocols, and all of a sudden you don't have access to make payments to and from that bank or get your bank statements in that day. It's like, oh my God, now you got to go to IT and have them fix that. Well, when that happens with the way that the banks connect with SAP right now, it gets rid of all those problems, because they're using a standard way to connect, and it's a standard file format, usually like an XML ISO 2022 type format as an example. And so it gets rid of a lot of those different connection problems where you had all those different failure points in the past. So it makes it a lot easier and streamlined.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So what are some of the attributes we talk about of a best-in-class bank connectivity solution?
Yeah, and this is what SAP is, you'll hear from SAP what they're talking about when they're talking about their, what's so great about SAP Multi-Bank Connectivity, and why is it considered a secure best-in-class type connectivity? Well, it's a couple of different points. One being your bank integration. You're looking at, I'll just talk about a few points here. One being the first one, which I think is very important, is what we will keep on talking about and reiterating, is that flexible solution to connect all those multiple banks, real-time connectivity. And yes, you can still do a batch or a manual upload or download. You can have it come from more than one ERP if that's the way that your infrastructure is. And of course, when you start being able to get those bank statements in, now you've really enhanced the ability to do your bank statement reconciliations and automatic postings to your GL, because you have that real-time integration between all your ERP payments, your treasury transactions, that's AP, AR, treasury transactions. That could be payments, investments, debt, whatever kind of transactions they may have, or bank to bank. So it's all covered, streamlined in one place. Your global formats. Now you're looking at trying to come up with a standardized message format across the globe. You're looking at a very efficient connectivity for that straight-through processing. And of course, you do have that ongoing regulatory compliance that I talked about, and maintenance of those message formats. It's standardized. It's all kept up to date, real time. You don't have to be babysitting this and worrying about this and expecting your IT people to be able to keep on top of what's changing and what's new. course, it's very easy to onboard the bank. There's a couple of different ways to do it. There's quite a few banks that already have the standard connection, but really it's a matter of really easily you can bring those banks on with some paperwork and with some certificates, connecting securely through some certificates that are particular to them. They ping, they're connected. It's very easy to bring on new banks, and it really reduces a lot of any kind of worrying about hooking up new hardware, trying to have to extend all your IT resources or having to worry about having a whole bunch of SAP folks on board to try to make all the different connections. It really makes it a lot easier to adopt those new banks. But also what I really like is the fact that you pay it as you go. It is a subscription model. It's free to set up. It's free for you to actually connect to multi-bank connectivity. They don't charge you to set it up the first time, but they do have a pay as you go. So through different like 1 to 1,000 payments, it's a tiered pricing arrangement. So it's really
Right.
quite efficient the way it works.
Right.
It's really it's one of the ways to go. I would use it, having used it for some of our clients already. It really works quite well.
Yeah, and that pay-as-you-go idea, of course, is very important, and why, if you're using tools, and we know, you and I both know that a lot of the banks are also offering tools like this, as well as some of
Yeah.
the third-party tools,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't offer an agnostic. If you're going to go with a banking tool with a big bank, they're all about getting you to use their banking products and use their bank and focus in on them almost exclusively, or as exclusively as possible. And they set up tools like virtual account management, virtual bank accounts, and things like that. And of course, again, it's a design to hook you into that relationship, and we'd like to believe that that kind of certainly limits your flexibility. You talk about multi-bank connectivity is in the cloud. What does that mean from a customer? Do you have to go buy analytics cloud or SAP cloud thing? Talk about that for a moment.
No, that's absolutely not. It can hook into any kind of ERP system. It doesn't even have to be just SAP, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
It's just a cloud-based product that is,
Exactly.
they're actually using SAP cloud provider, and it doesn't really mean anything to the customer where they're actually having to buy a prescription to be able to have access to that connectivity. It's free,
Right.
and it's a easier way to be able to have that interface connection between you and your bank.
Right. Right. And SAP
Yeah.
is constantly adding banks to the list, as by the way are we, as we work with customers and add more banks and bank branches to this whole process. Right.
Yes, and then you may find a case where one of the global banks out of New York is connected to it, and then their little hometown bank, it might be the same bank but different affiliation. It's not that difficult. A little bit of paperwork, certificates, a ping connection, and then they have the connection to SAP, and then you have to connect it on the backside into your ERP system, whatever ERP system or systems that you're using. And it just is really a facilitator of a straight through pipe in a standardized way to get your payments
Right.
and your messaging content to flow in a standardized way across the different banks.
And SAP has developed a number of tools to help people do that. So that's also very helpful. Great.
Yes, they have a whole team that will support you on hooking that up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As will we, by the way.
Yes, well, working with your development people, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So talk for a moment about cash management, payments, bank connectivity. Get to, I like this slide. It's a beautiful vision of where you could be from a bank relationship and management perspective.
Yes, I think some folks have probably seen this slide before, maybe a little bit differently. But now that you've rationalized your bank account and your connectivity, what you're seeing here is that if you can think about it, now you've got all your different banks fully integrating into one pipeline, which is your SAP Multi-Bank Connectivity. It's one way of connecting, one pipe, all of them together, versus having them all going one by one into your ERP system. It's all going through the multi-bank connectivity in a standardized process. So you have standard ERP integration, and now you can have the straight pipe into your ERP system. So what you're allowed to do is you have all of your payments, your AP, your AR, your treasury, if you're doing in-house cash processing, virtual bank accounts, if you're doing payroll or T&E and so forth, it's all in there and all standardized. So now you're consolidating all of your cash flow data from your SAP. It could be also from non-SAP systems if you happen to have one, but into one single treasury platform. So now it's all private and it's secure and it is hosted by SAP. You have the ability to view all the different analytics or your key performance indicators if you need to, so without having to switch between your different systems. You have the ability to centralize all that information, run your end-to-end processes to see, like I was talking about earlier, it's not just seeing your electronic bank statements and seeing the view of all your different payments, but you can also see all your different acknowledgments, your status notification. Did the payment make it out of my ERP? Did it make it into the Swift network? Did it fail at any point in time? So you can get all those to come in, and your positive pay files, the whole bit. You also have, which is most important, is you have now control over all of your workflows. You have embedded tools to make sure you have the proper approvals and access in place, and the monitoring of all those different workflows. It's all standard, it's all streamlined. So you're not worrying about setting that up all over the place. It's all streamlined in one place. So it enhances and strengthens your controls.
Absolutely. It goes back to those three things that we talked about: visibility, efficiency, and control. Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you get there. We show that it's in S/4HANA, but Kim, I believe also this works as effectively in ECC as it works in S4. You don't have to be on S4, right?
No, technically you could put it in another, what am I to call it? It doesn't have to be an SAP product. Actually.
It can be in another ERP.
It could be Oracle. That's what I was trying to say. It could be Oracle. Technically, I haven't done it, but yeah, you can do it in ECC. You can do it in on-premises, cloud. You can have a connection. There's ways that you actually set it up with central finance. You can set it up if some companies may be still in a case where they've gone through mergers and acquisitions where they're actually having a S/4HANA and they also have an ECC. So there's different ways that you can play with this to work in a standardized, centralized way.
Right, and on the right here, you show, and here's the idea in part about this idea of rationalization. You're looking at, think of the concept of you could have core banks, and then they're also interfacing. So you can use multi-bank connectivity, I believe, right, to, let's say that you were doing business in the Far East, and that you wanted to use ANZ as your bank over there. You wanted to use Wells Fargo or Citi, any of those banks, right? You want to have a centralized bank. You can have a centralized banking relationship, but knowing that you have to have certain banks in Korea or China or other local locations, you don't necessarily have, you can directly connect to them through MBC, multi-bank connectivity, or you can create a hub and spoke model that says, I'm going to have strategic relationships with some key banks in the region, and then those banks will be funnels or the hub for some of my other banking relationships in the region, right?
Exactly, and that typically does have to happen, because when you're dealing with some of the areas within Asia and so forth, you must, because you have to have a localized bank for regulatory purposes, statutory regulatory purposes, and so you can just take that bank and feed it into one of the other banks, like a Wells Fargo. I'm picking on Wells Fargo today.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. And
and funnel it straight through.
Yeah, and you can funnel it straight through, or you can use an in-house cash style model, or you can use another model that gives you the flexibility to direct your cash where it needs to be. In addition, another thing that you and I talked about in this strategy is thinking about business continuity. We have a couple of customers we've talked to who are offshoring some of their finance activity, whether it's accounts payable or it's accounts receivable or other activities. And say, for example, I offshore it to Indonesia and a typhoon comes through, I'd want to have a backup strategy and certainly have a backup location and maybe put that in Europe or put that in here in beautiful sunny Arizona. But you could have these different strategies. And by using a tool like multi-bank connectivity and having a rationalization strategy, it increases your ability to have that flexibility, right?
Exactly. You just easily have to have the backup business continuity plans to have the people to have access to the system and
Spot
those
on.
bank accounts.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are.
Right.
You
Right. And the same
centralize
is true.
like
Yeah. We talked about those four drivers early on, and one of them is the quote unquote work from home, but we
mm-hmm.
talked about it being also remote work and your ability to, if you're using an SAP central focus and a rationalized strategy, it gives you that assurance and that connectivity. So, yeah.
Exactly. And so now you've centralized your processes, you've centralized, you've
Yeah.
got your banking strategy in place, centralize your connectivity, centralize your processes,
Mhm.
put in your business continuity so you have backup in case one area is down and you're all
Yeah.
ready.
So we're getting along, and I will try to keep to our 1 hour for folks. And I apologize for the false start, but one of the things that people ask us about is, well, John and Kim, that's a great theory. We love the idea, but where do I start? What's our approach? How do I move this forward? Because it's great that you talk about all these things, but where do I go from here? How can you help me? Kim, why don't you talk a little bit about this, we'll call it a 6-step process, or approach that we like to take customers through.
Yes, I wanted to put this together just to try to put some context around it to make it a little easier. And this is my last slide, so I'll give it back to John after this. So we'll be fine with our timeline. So what I want to do is I want to talk about, start right here. One of the first things you're going to want to do is when you're beginning and looking at your real picture of your current bank landscape, you're really looking that, your bank rationalization, it's not a one size fits all approach. It's different depending on what the business is and where they are and where they're trying to go. So you really need to get a real picture of your current bank landscape, and you want to ensure that you're aligning with your business strategy. Understand why your current organization's current, structure exists. Where are the accounts located? What's the activity or the lack of in each account? Identify the duplicates. Bank accounts and entities. You might have bank accounts that are hooked up that are no longer required, or entities are no longer required. What's the number, location, type of your funding structure? Your bank account can vary widely across, companies, of course. Look at all your mix of accounts. It's not just cash management and collections disbursements. Look at your activities such as payroll, foreign exchange, your P cards, your T&E, your investments, your trade finance, guarantees even. It all has to be looked at and evaluated. Look at all the access of all your impact on your systems. Rationalization is not just the number of bank accounts. It's also what are the services being provided?
Mhm.
Do we need these services? Are they effective? How do I gain accessibility, to the bank fees that are being charged? That's your number one. Get that real picture of your current bank statement. Now you're going to want to look at, what's my desired banking landscape? Where am I trying to go? What's my vision? What do I want to achieve here?
Right.
Designing a banking structure to provide immediate benefits, okay, fine. But I want the most common approach really is for banks not to have banks all over the place. You really want to have like 2 to 3 global banks that the entire relationship is centrally managed. So you get the typhoon coming down, it's centrally managed. It's not only the guy that's sitting in that particular country. The centralized global banks will need that capability to work with the strategic network partners, of course, in countries like we were just talking about, where some of the Asia countries are maybe having to centralize their activities into like the Wells Fargo. That's something that you need to consider, and that's where you're leveraging all that tools and approaches to now go from developing your vision to leverage the tools and approaches so you have that standard approach. You're looking at your best practices.
Yep.
You're looking at the different analytics that you can have. And then you're going to move on to take that focused approach. How can I do this quickest? Is there some quick wins? Do I want to do a certain region at a time? Do the U.S. first? Do different areas within Europe or Asia or wherever you want to start? How can I look at doing this in a phased approach? You don't have to do a quick bang and try to cover the entire world right away. You want to start getting this structure in place so you can start utilizing the benefits now
Right.
and do like an agile type approach, which I find works very, very well. So you need to actually get that actual action plan in place. How can you define that and get that action plan in place? But be careful also You want to make sure you're not overlooking their compliance and security. Now that you finalize and you standardize your banking, you also standardize your banking connectivity. Make sure that you have your arms wrapped around all the security, who has access, where are they having access. You have the proper controls of viewing and access in place. You have your proper workflow approvals of who can actually make a payment or approve a payment. Make sure that's all in place. And now you're ready to actually put your plan into action. So now that you can have that ability to leverage the comply, optimize, and transform framework that we always speak about.
Yeah, yeah, we talk about that a lot, and the comply, optimize, transform framework is a great way to think about what you want to achieve. And if you start at level one and think about, how do I make sure that the transactions that I'm doing and the work that I'm doing is being done correctly and that it's accurately reflecting and reporting what I'm doing as a business.
Mm-hmm.
Optimization is, of course, all about, and this is a heavily, this is a lot about the optimization is, how do I optimize my transactions? How do I create an infrastructure that optimizes and balances the need to be flexible in the marketplace, manage costs, and develop security and compliance? And then transformation is really about, we talked about the analytics first, using the analytics to drive your activity and being more proactive rather than being reactive, using tools in SAP such as the forecast, the cache analyzers, and the forecasting tools, the predictive analytics that help
Mm-hmm.
you transform and get ready in advance. So I
Exactly.
think this
Mm-hmm.
makes total sense. Yeah,
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 being proactive is very key.
yeah, absolutely. So how do we get started and how do you get started? Well, Bramasol has these things we call our health check workshops or our health checks, and we offer them in a variety of different areas. Bramasol is a leader in SAP finance. We provide solutions and answers to your SAP challenges across the entire spectrum, whether it's in S4HANA, ECC. Today, we're focused heavily on treasury, cash management, and banking. And so we can come in and give you a comprehensive analysis of your entire ecosystems. And we offer three different specific um, workshops, one focused on cash management, one focused on the banking area that we've talked about. So Kim mentioned in step one, how do you get a picture of where you are today? Well, our health check or our assessment workshops are the way that we can help you do that. And how they work is we really come in and give you a sense and work on along four basic dimensions. We take a look at what you do functionally. What are how are your operations are set up? What functions and what activities are you doing? Have you outsourced um, your AP payments? Are you using AP payments? Do you use derivatives? Do you use foreign exchange? How are you doing all of that? And looking at your bank account structure and the ability to serve your group operations. Are the bank accounts you have in place, as Kim said, are you using them? Are they the correct ones? How do they support your business? The next piece is to really look at the operational aspects and how did you operationalize that? It evaluates and looks at current methodologies for initiating payment instructions. It looks at receipts of cash. Are you obtaining and how are you able to obtain payments and confirmations? We'll look at bank process and receiving of the statements. We'll look at payment types, payment status, all of that. The next thing we'll do is take a look at the technical infrastructure and we'll look at, what are you using and how are you doing it? Do you have host-to-host connections? Are you using Swift? How might you take advantage of MVC? What are some of the technical issues and challenges you might have around data sources in your landscape? And we'll give you an evaluation of that. And finally, the analytics and reporting. Really, the most powerful aspect of this is to provide you the information and tools to help you make the decisions to drive your business forward for 2021 and beyond. How to make you more flexible, nimble, and give you, as we've said, that idea of your visibility, efficiency, and control over everything that you do from a cash and treasury management perspective. We do this through a three-step process, and the first one is we work with you to establish and understand what do you want to focus on? How do we help you focus on those areas that are important to you? We then conduct a series of workshops across each of these dimensions. We explore the 4 dimensions of a bank relationship solution: the functional, operational, technical, and reporting. They are done either in person or, of course, today we do a lot of them remote. They leverage group sessions with your experts. We bring our experts in, and it's really a guided session to better understand what you're doing really, really well and the things that you could be doing a little bit better. And we do that through a series of between 8 and 10 different workshops designed to help drive that value. And then finally, we provide you with a written assessment that really helps you understand your opportunities, your both low-hanging fruit and a longer roadmap view for future innovation. And so we strongly recommend that our clients take advantage of this health check. And if you reach out to either Kim or I, or a member of the Bramasol team, will be happy to tell you more about the health checks. So with that, I want to thank Kim again. As always, it's awesome to work with you on these webinars and
Thank you, Dan.
remind you, yeah, thank you. And remind you that Bramasol is a leader in business transformation and finance compliance. We help companies across the procure to pay, order to cash, and the cash and risk management aspects, as well as all of their finance areas. We do this by leveraging the SAP, what we call the SAP Business Innovation Platform, which includes both SAP and SAP S/4HANA and the SAP ECC platforms to give you maximum benefit. We layer on top of that deep analytics and dashboards to provide you insight to action. So again, I want to thank you very much. I encourage you, by the way, check out some of our upcoming webinars. We'll be doing webinar next week at this same time, focused on commissions accounting, leveraging the SAP RAR solutions and tools we provided on commissions accounting. And next month, we'll be looking at the integration of RAR and project systems, as well as some unique solutions we've developed for both lessors and lessees. So with that, and on behalf of my colleagues and friends here at Bramasol, I want to thank all of you for joining us. I wish you a happy new year, and please stay safe, use your masks, and we look forward to working with you to future success of your business. Make it a great day.